So our motivation for coming here together to learn about the Dharma is a quote from His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Venerable Thupten Trudren from this wonderful book called Approaching the Buddhist Path. So the future that we hope for is not a self-centered one based on worldly desires, but one that takes others into consideration and wants happiness for many. The latter type of hope will motivate us to practice the Dharma and to engage in projects that directly benefit others. So in the first class, we looked at the Buddha's life as a source of inspiration and his teachings on the Four Noble Truths, particularly the first truth, which is the nature of suffering. Suffering or unpleasant experiences results from having a mind that is controlled by negative emotions, negative afflictions, such as attachment, hatred, and ignorance. And we talked about our relationship with the what's known as the 8 worldly concerns, but how due to this ignorance, we're just so caught up, we're so controlled by our desire for all the things that we crave, like big bank accounts, a good name, big reputation, we want to be famous, and all those creature comforts, right? Like we all want to be nice and warm and cozy. I hate to be cold. And the reason for that is because we think of these types of we think of these false types of happiness as being the real source, the actual source of happiness, right? So we're tricked. We're tricked. And so, when we don't get what we want, we feel disappointed, we feel frustrated, right? And no matter how much we acquire, how much good stuff we get, are we satisfied? I know I'm not, right? I admit it. And so it kind of feeds itself. So the more you get, the more you want, right? It just kind of builds on itself. And if you ever shop at, I always give this example, if you ever shop at the grocery store called Big Y, anybody shop at Big Y? Yeah, they have a store brand, and what's it called? Craving. I just love that. I should bring a picture, right? So you can buy these delicious cookies, and the branding is Craving, right? They got this nailed. Right? This is not something that's specific to Buddhism, not by any means, right? And so if you've heard the word samsara, right? Samsara is a state of dissatisfaction, right? It's a mind that's stained by these afflictions. And so I mentioned, like attachment and ignorance and hatred, but those are just like, catch-all categories for a whole, that's like the tip of the iceberg. So what keeps us tied in samsara, what binds us in samsara, makes it hard to, get out. So there are 2 factors, negative emotions and karma, right? And so those are all rooted in ignorance, but negative emotions and karma. So we have been basing these talks, Dharma talks, on 4 seals. And so the first is that all compounded things are impermanent. All phenomena are, all compounded things are impermanent. All emotions are painful. All phenomena are empty. They're without inherent existence. And the 4th seal is that nirvana is beyond extremes. So we're working our way through these. And today's talk is probably more geared towards the second, all emotions are painful, right? So today we're going to continue to explore some of these, these key concepts that make up the Buddhist worldview. And we'll be focusing loosely on the second and third truths. the origin of suffering, and how can we free ourselves from suffering? How can suffering be eliminated? So the bottom line of today's talk is that we are responsible for our present, past, and future happiness, right? So we create our own reality. And so while it may not, feel like it, whether we have a good day or a bad day is entirely a question of perspective, right? So as Buddhists, we say that having been born as a human being, well, this is actually the best possible rebirth, okay? And so having already attained the best possible rebirth, what we now need to do is to work primarily for future happiness, right? So you already won the lottery. And so that means that the purpose of living, right now, today, this life, our goal is not to just get stuck up in samsaric desire, chasing after these false types of happiness. So we're not, just working for that pleasure and happiness of today, but rather we should be investing our time and resources to create the causes for a good tomorrow, okay? So to explain this a little further, the Dalai Lama wrote, okay, the good kind of acceptance acknowledges and accepts our own and others' faults and failures, and at the same time wants to improve in the future. There's no use fighting the reality of the present moment, but we know we can change and improve in the future. We accept the present suffering, for the causes of it have been created and are already ripening. Future suffering, however, can still be prevented. So our mind remains optimistic. By accepting the present situation, our time and energy is not consumed in anger or grief, and we can direct ourselves instead to purifying the causes for future suffering, avoiding the creation of more such causes, and creating the causes for future happiness. Okay, so that is a quote from Approaching the Buddhist Path. So today's talk is primarily about just how we can go about doing this, right? It's about karma. So to create the causes for happiness, we need to transform our minds, change our attitudes, change the way we think. So due to having this powerful and very tenacious sense of personal identity, the sense of self, then we fall under the control of our negative emotions. And so there's 6 main types of negative emotions. And so I'll just go through these quickly. And as I go through them, try to think in your own mind, hey, is that me? Do I ever experience that? So the first is attachment or longing desire. The second is anger or hatred. And you can also think to yourself, which of these primarily is like a problem for you? Because some of them, some people you might be more under the sway of one of these emotions than the other. Okay, so it could be attachment, it could be attachment, it could be anger or hatred, it could be pride or arrogance, it could be ignorance. Okay, so ignorance then in this has a very specific meaning in Buddhism. So it's the bewilderment or the confusion, the delusions. So it's basically, it's not knowing some of these fundamental Buddhist principles, such as karma, or how cause and effect play out, and the nature of reality. So we're going to talk a lot more about that in, I think, in the 4th class. So I'm not going to go into that so much right now. But it all comes down to this idea of a sense of a permanent, unchanging self, okay? So a self-cherishing mind that puts, me, myself, and I at the center of the universe. And that gives rise to these strong negative emotions. And then the last of these is doubt. So doubt is, not knowing which of 2 or several alternatives is true. And in this specific context, it's regarding the Buddhist thought. So not knowing whether things like, like what we've been talking about, the 4 seals or the 4 noble truths or Buddhahood, not being sure whether or not these are in fact true. So we've got these, primary root afflictions. And I think we'll notice that our peace of mind is often disturbed, right? So these root afflictions will arise and will be stirred up by whatever's going on around us. Like, so what other people are feeling. Like, for example, if we're in a community and other people are up in arms about something, then, we might get swept up in that kind of emotional upheaval, right? We might buy into explanations or stories that were fed via social media and the news, right? And as we get more and more invested in an issue, or maybe it's, like a personal problem, right? And then we might find ourselves thinking about it repeatedly, like over and over again. You start to obsess about something. I do this all the time. You get stuck in some kind of like little spiral or something. And, and then you start maybe talking about it to other people. You're like, hey, did you know that this so-and-so said this about so-and-so? And then she said this and he said that. And, and then the story takes on a life of its own, right? It just gets exaggerated and blown out of proportion, right? So it's this idea of distortion of the truth being distorted. And then you just, you find people, or you yourself, and end up in a situation where, you're just bad-mouthing people, right? And you can turn your enemy into like a Godzilla, a real Godzilla, they're walking Godzillas. There's a new movie, I think, about Godzilla. It's supposed to be good. So, this can also be the case with how we perceive ourselves, right? And so in the case like of low self-esteem, we're tempted, or we fall into this unfortunate habit of treating ourselves unkindly. And this is often, I think, a result of social pressure. And it creates a distorted perception of ourselves, right? And that distorted perception exaggerates our weaknesses and, overlooks our beauty. Low self-esteem. Another cause of negative emotions then is our tendency to practice them. And so the ones that we are most familiar with, the ones that arise the most quickly, those tend to be the ones that we rehearse. And it takes the threshold for triggering those emotions, becomes very, very low, okay? And so, some people tend to be very impatient. I think we all are, because it's the digital era, right? I don't know. The computers have gotten faster. Everything's like the phone is so fast, right? If you have to wait more than, like half a second for something to go, you're like, click, 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 right? You grab the mouse, you're like, da, 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 da. What's going on? So we have to be careful, as we get more impatient, then we're going to get angry a lot faster. Other people, are so arrogant, they're so full of pride that, they just think, they're above the law, right? The law doesn't apply to them. So they can break it. Doesn't apply to them. So, so those 6 root afflictions, or actually, I only mentioned 5. The 5 root afflictions, which were attachment, hatred, arrogance, ignorance, and doubt. These root afflictions give rise to at least 20 secondary afflictions, including things like belligerence, which is an intention to harm, resentment, greed, jealousy, you name it, it's in there, right? And so there are many resources if you're interested in learning more about this topic. Then go to a respectable, fantastic website, studybuddhism.com. Studybuddhism.com has like everything you ever wanted to know about Buddhism. And look for the topic, primary minds and the 51 mental factors. Okay, so the main point here, though, is that we're like little children. Okay, our minds are completely under the control of these powerful negative emotions. And this is a really key point, this idea that we are under the control of these negative emotions, right? We're giving ourselves a lot of benefit of the doubt here. So if somebody steals your $10,000 Air Jordan sneakers, you should reject the thief's greedy desire, which, you should abandon, or you should get, if you're going to get angry at anything, get angry at the thief's greedy desire, which motivated him or almost forced him to steal your shoes. Don't get angry at the thief himself. In addition, you could even acknowledge your own involuntary contribution to the situation, because you could say that, well, if I hadn't been there in the first place, if I hadn't taken my beautiful sneakers off when I was sitting there, then the thief would not have been tempted to steal them, right? So maybe this poor guy was like a major kleptomaniac, right? And he had a shoe fetish. So he saw those Air Jordans and he's like, boom, I just got to get those beautiful $10,000 shoes, right? So from a karmic sense, from a sense of compassion and trying to turn that situation around, that's what we're trying to do, right? Transform suffering into happiness. That's the reason we're here. You can, rationalize with yourself. You can say, well, that poor guy with the shoe fetish, he is going to suffer big time in the future, right? Because that's karmic cause and effect. And I'll go through that in more detail in a minute. But that's a good way to turn the situation around. Okay? So the point is that if you get, really angry, if you blow your top because you're so attached to your $10,000 sneakers, so now you lose your peace of mind. You're upset, right? And the whole name of the game is not to get upset, right? We're talking peace, love, and granola. That means calm. We want to be calm, right? But here you're in a situation where, you're too attached to the sneakers, right? And now you're angry because you lost the sneakers, right? And now, not only are you never going to get your sneakers back, you're angry, you're upset, right? So you've got the additional pain of being upset. That's your choice. Bottom line is that's a choice, okay? So now you got your mind, it's like buzzing like a wasp's nest, that's disturbed, right? Like if you ever bumped into a wasp's nest, bad things happen, right? The bees come whizzing out and they're just like, hundreds of them come pouring out and they're like attacking everybody indiscriminately, everybody gets stung, especially you. Okay, so you're out there, on social media, or you're telling your friends, oh my God, my $10,000, Air Jordans are gone, blah, 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 right? That's a recipe for a bad day. Didn't have to do it. Okay. So, where does this all come from? Again, our innate survival instinct, right? When you think of us from like a evolutionary perspective, right? It's our innate survival instinct, this sense of fight or flight that drives us to put our own self-interests first. Makes sense, right? And so we feel like there's, a barrier separating like me from you, right? Everybody feels like they're their own isolated little entities. And so in order to protect ourselves, and by extension, what we consider mine, right? My iPad, my computer, my drink, etc. My friends, my family. There's a lot of my's, right? You start thinking of all the my's, my house, my spouse, my etc. Right? So basically, it's me, myself, and everybody on my side of the fence, my side of the barrier. Then because we're motivated at a very, deep instinctive level by fight or flight, then we'll do just about anything to try to defend and protect and speak up for anything that's of concern to us, anything that we love, anything that we're attached to. Even if it means harming the other guys on the other side of the fence, right? We'll do anything it takes, instinctively. So that's why it's important to have, this framework, this other perspective, these other principles in mind, these other reasonings to help us to moderate that course of action, right? So we don't just, act out of bare emotion, raw emotion, right? Instead, we're going to stop. I'm going to say, oh my God, I went to this class on karma. Wait a minute. Hang on. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at this topic of karma in greater detail. But before I start, is there anything so far that you would like to ask that's unclear, that you have questions about? I will give it a try in terms of.
Yeah, I've got a quick question. Could you repeat the one-word list of these negative emotions or whatever? I don't know what you're calling the category. Could you just repeat the one word? Because I think I lost track. I'm not sure if I've got 5 in my mind. Like it was attachment.
Yep, attachment, anger, arrogance or pride, ignorance, and doubt. Is that good? Attachment, anger, arrogance, and doubt.
And I think earlier you said you had 6 and you reduced it to 5. What was the 6th one that you didn't include?
It was more related to view.
Oh, I get you. I get you. Thank you so much.
You bet, Richard. Anything else? Yeah.
I have a question. What were the 4 seals? I got 3 out of the 4, but I think I missed the 3rd one.
All compounded things are impermanent.
All compounded things are impermanent. All phenomena are empty. And nirvana is beyond all extremes. What's the 3rd one?
It was the second one that you missed. It's all emotions are painful.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anila,
Hi, Louisa.
hi. I had a friend yesterday, we were together, and he was asking me, well, what is Dharma? And I was just wondering if you had a book recommendation that was succinct and yet lighthearted and a very gentle introduction to Buddhism for someone who is not a Buddhist, but, you know, is curious.
I bet you want a short book too.
In this day and age, absolutely. Yeah, not a tome.
Because I would say Approaching the Buddhist Path, but that's like, it's over 600 pages. Well, no, it's not that long. It's probably 300 something. The book by His Holiness and Thupten Chodron. Or you know what? My old
What?
favorite, The Book of Joy.
Okay.
That one, right? Yeah, I know you've read that one.
Yes, and given copies of it away. So
Yeah, see, there you go.
thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Annie.
You're welcome. Louisa reads a lot. She's always asking me about books. She's phenomenal. Okay, so we're going to go on and talk some more about karma. So what I was thinking in terms of the class ends at 11:30, right? 10 to 11:30. So I'm going to blob on a little bit more, and then I have some discussion questions. Maybe we'll have time for that. And then also some meditation. So I'm hoping to stop talking by 11 o'clock. Okay. All right. So having given a really quick overview, broad brush overview of the negative emotions, let's talk about karma, because I keep talking. I've mentioned the word, but let's see what it's all about. So really what it comes down to is this idea of virtuous and non-virtuous actions. And so non-virtuous actions, in a nutshell, meaning something that you do that harms others. And a virtuous action is the opposite. It's something that helps others, okay? You know, this is not unique to Buddhism, thank goodness, right? So all the world religious traditions and they all emphasize, you know, the need for loving others, right? And the Dalai Lama always emphasizes the need for educators to familiarize their students with secular ethics and moral principles. You know, he has a whole initiative called Universal Education, Universal Compassion and Education. It's a program that's been developed and implemented in schools in India and elsewhere. And so these ideas of secular ethics, universal ethics, moral principles are so important, right? We all know this, right? Because it's the foundation of civil society. So this idea of karma, though, is kind of different, kind of distinct. So simply stated, then karma is intentional action. So intentional action done by with your body, right? So physically, verbally, or mentally. So these causes then have associated effects and our experiences in this life and in the future, right? So we're going to experience the karmic effects of these causes, both now and in the future. And at the same time, you know, we can think of, by extension, you know, what's happened. Well, okay, I'll hold on to that. Think of it just in terms of what's going on now and in the future, in terms of our experiences and even the environment in which we find ourselves. All right. And so, you know, when we look at ourselves right now, today, the fact that we're here born as human beings and that we have all of our sense faculties, intact, that we've had this opportunity to meet the Buddhist teachings, the Dharma of the Buddhist teachings, and that we're surrounded by loving and kind people. All of these wonderful conditions and many more are all the result of virtuous, positive, good actions that we did in the past. And similarly, whatever hardships that we're experiencing, whatever life challenges we're experiencing, are the result of non-virtue. Right? So there are 10 non-virtuous acts that we can carry out through our body, speech, and mind. And generally speaking, whenever we are acting out of self-interest, right, then we're engaged in non-virtue, right? So if you really want a very succinct definition, then so non-virtue is going to be related to acting out of self-interest, and self-interest in the sense that you go to the point of harming others in order to protect or feel good about yourself, right? Okay, so based on those 3 poisons, right? Desire, hostility or ignorance, or attachment and hatred and ignorance, there are 3 non-virtuous actions of the body. And as I go through this, again, you're thinking to yourself, oh, did I do this? Did I do this? Right? So of the body, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, speech, lying, divisive speech, idle gossip, and harsh speech. And of the mind, covetousness, malice, and wrong view. So I'm going to quickly describe each of these. And again, the idea is, for us to honestly examine our lives and think, gee, have I done this? So for the body, so killing would be killing any living being for personal gain. And that the worst targets of killing would be your father, your mother, or a bodhisattva, somebody who's on the path to enlightenment. And so when we're walking, when we're driving, if you mow the lawn, if you buy clothes made from animal products, if you eat meat, all of this involves taking life. Stealing, lots of examples of stealing. That's an easy one, right? If you get on the bus in New York City and you don't pay, so many people do that. If you watch Netflix using somebody else's account, right? If you're going through the self-checkout line at Big Y and you just accidentally put something in your bag, oh, I forgot to scan that. Darn, right? Sexual misconduct, that refers specifically to, basically it's adultery. And then speech. Speech includes lying. Lying could be well, everybody knows what lying is, but one example would be like claiming unemployment benefits by lying that you couldn't find a job. That's a form of lying. Divisive speech or slander is breaking up people who are harmonious with each other. And then on the flip side would be preventing those who are unfriendly, who are like, in a disagreement, but they want to reconcile. If you prevent them from getting back together again, that could be through the use of divisive speech. The next one, this is another popular one, idle gossip or senseless speech. So that's using meaningless or purposeless words. So you think of, social media, there's a lot of that going on. In this case, you need to know what you're saying, right? You have to know what words you're uttering, right? But you speak, basically it's carelessly or frivolously, you're just kind of babbling on and on and on. It doesn't matter if the person who you're speaking to understands, or even if you're speaking to yourself, which I think means that if you're sitting there at home and you're like talking to your cat, I don't know if anybody does this, but if you're talking to your cat or you're talking to your dog and you're just like, blah, 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 well, maybe we should do this. Oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Or talking to yourself, I talk to myself all the time. So that, you're just kind of saying whatever comes to your mind. Blabbing on and on. All right, so that's actually a negative action. It's a non-virtuous action. And then the last one of speech is harsh speech. Harsh speech is harsh words, harsh language that's directed towards someone who is a source of hostility in you. And that's an important word. It's a source of hostility in you. That means it's not to you, right? Necessarily, it's in you. It's somebody that you don't like. Okay, so they might like you, but you don't like them, right? So it's a source of hostility in you, and you want to hurt that person. And it doesn't, you could make up a whole bunch of lies about that person, and it's just intentionally using hurtful, damaging speech. And then the 3 for mind. So the first is covetousness. I think everybody knows what that is. It's desiring the wealth or property of other people. And so covetousness, I think it's closely related to like greed, right? It's that urge to want something. It stems from attachment. It's a form of attachment. And so there's this very funny example in Geshe Sopa wrote this huge book about karma. And it's like when you see something in the store or online, right? And you go over and you look at it, you pick it up and you examine all of its, qualities. You say, oh, gee, that's, a good size. It's made out of stainless steel. It's got this really cool cap, so you can close it and it locks, it won't leak, right? And then you put it down. You're like, I'll go look at something else, right? Look at the other mugs. And you're like, well, let me go back. And you pick it up again. And you're like, oh, look, it's not too expensive. And you put it back. And you go, well, how do you come back, right? Finally, you decide, like you lock in on this thing. You think, I gotta have it, right? If somebody else is in your way, if it's the last one on the shelf, you're like, oh, I gotta go get it, right? I think Amazon does that. They'll say, oh, there are only 3 left. Order soon. That's probably a bunch of hooey. How do they know? They just say that to make you run and click that add to cart button and all that stuff, right? So if you're on Amazon, maybe you just put it on the wish list. You're not 100% sure, so you put it on the wish list. Okay. But then the problem is, now that you're so determined to buy this beautiful thermos mug thing, what happens if you don't have the money to buy it? You're like, oh my God, it's, $30. I just can't afford it. Then you'd be tempted to steal it, right? So that, that mindset then triggers actions. Okay. Any questions so far or comments? Any funny examples from your own life? Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask a question because I sense you're hoping a discussion starts here. So do you have to actually steal it, or is it also a fault to just think I want to steal it, but refrain from stealing it? In other words, does it have to be an actual bodily action of, oh, I'm coveting that thing from that stainless steel thing you described. I'm coveting it. I want it. I have the desire for it. I want to go steal it.
Right. but
Quite often we have that, but we don't actually steal
Yeah.
sometimes, you know.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And so karma works kind of like on a graded scale, so to speak. And so in each of these actions, then whether you just generate the desire to act, or whether you actually culminate the action, creates different levels of karma. So like you said, you know, if you're just thinking about it, but you don't act on it, then you would generate, you know, maybe a relatively small amount of negative karma, versus if you actually carried out, followed through with the act of stealing or killing or harsh speech. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, so then the next one is malice. And malice is the desire to hurt someone by any means possible. You just want to destroy the person financially, physically, mentally, whatever, right? Take that person down. And then the last is a wrong view. And here this means, in terms of Buddhist philosophy, I guess, it's a nihilistic view that denies the existence of something that exists. So it'd be like denying karma, denying, again, you know, the Four Noble Truths, anything that the Buddhists hold as true. Okay. So now we're going to go through a brief explanation of how each of these non-virtuous actions has a corresponding result. And again, you know, we're thinking about, how does this relate to my life? And so this is all of this description is taken from Geshe Sopa's book about karma. So for killing, even if you're born as a human being, you'll have a short life and you'll suffer many sicknesses. For stealing, if you commit the action of stealing, oh yeah.
You mentioned mowing the lawn, so I expect that means you're cutting the grass. So you go out and you have a beautiful tree and bushes, and you see wild grapevine growing over those shrubs and choking them out. What, you're gonna kill that grapevine when you pull it out, or it's when you choke out the shrub and the tree that you want.
Oh,
Nothing
yes.
stops that.
Yes.
If mowing the lawn is killing, keeping the grass at a certain height and helping for its growth. How do you reconcile that in the next show?
Okay, so when I said mowing the lawn, the example was, so when we're talking about killing, it's more in terms of sentient beings, you know, so insects, anything that has a mind, and not so much directed as like plants. So plant life, you know, whether you're cutting the lawn or ripping out, you know, an invasive species, you know, such as the wild grapevine, non-native invasive species, right? Then that's not considered killing per se. If you mow the lawn, the example was because you're killing the insects that are living in the grass, right? So you're killing, you know, like sometimes there are little moths or maybe some worms or something, or beetles.
So when we think about plant life, and a plant may turn towards the sun, or open up to the sun, that's kind of a form of sentience.
Not so much. Not so much. Yeah. I know that's an interesting topic that comes up very often, but yeah, I don't think that it's really considered having a mind in the way, you know, like a human being or an insect or an animal, a fish.
You said that topic comes up very often.
It's a question that comes up. Yeah. No, not at all. No, it's a good question. Yeah. Yeah.
Annalena, can you repeat the question? It was hard to hear the person.
Oh, the question is whether or not plants are considered sentient beings in Buddhism. You know, plant life. And
Thank you.
mhm. Sure. Okay, so killing is, even if you're born as a human being, you have a short life, you suffer from many sicknesses. If you commit the act of stealing, if you steal, then you'll be poor. And whatever little, that you have to share it with others. So you're always, in a state of need. Sexual misconduct then results in life with a very troublesome spouse or partner. The other person will be unfaithful, difficult to get along with. If you lie, then you'll be subject to slander by others. You'll be blamed and defamed and deceived by others in your life. If you engage in divisive speech, in slander, then the result is you'll be divided from your dear friends. Right? You're going to have relationship problems. Everyone around you will be argumentative. There'll be a lot of fights, a lot of unhappiness, a lot of arguments. And so if you find yourself like in a toxic workplace, right? There's a lot of backstabbing and, it's just not a peaceful, cool place to be. That could be as a result of, divisive speech, right? So the people around you are argumentative, they're unreliable, they're just evil. Okay, so that was slander. And then the next one is harsh speech. Harsh speech is if you engage in harsh speech, like you've criticized others, then the result is going to be that it comes, back around, right? So you yourself will be the target of harsh speech. You will be constantly attacked, constantly criticized. So it might feel like, you're the victim of, others' harsh words, harsh speech. Like people are always beating up on you. Maybe you're always being bullied. Okay. Then the last one for speech is senseless speech. So if you're out there, just babbling to the bushes, talking to your dog, whatever, then the result is that no one will listen to what you have to say. Kind of makes sense, right? So, even though, you've got something important to say, and you have an important point to make, and you're not just engaging in senseless babble, right? When it's time to say something important, then nobody listens to you. And so as a result, you lack self-confidence. You can be isolated, feel isolated, and you're just generally like uncertain about yourself, about your thoughts, about your deeds, because nobody's listening to you, right? Nobody's listening. That can be very much a contribution to feelings of like low self-esteem. All right. So for the 3 non-virtuous actions results in terms of the mind. So covetousness, the result of covetousness, again, you rehearsed that habit. And so you are never satisfied, right? You just always want more. And then for malice, malice is the result of the mind of hatred, is you have a tendency to seek out what's non-beneficial in life, like silly things or worse, like harmful things. You're attracted to those types of things and activities, such that you habitually harm others, right? So maybe you're a serial killer. Yeah. Or, the point is that you can, again, be the target, you can be the recipient of any kind of harm. Right? It comes back to you. So others are always harming you. And then the last one is wrong view, which is ignorance. So that means that you turn away from the Buddha's teachings, and you're constantly deceitful to others. Okay, so now I got to speed up a little bit. So then there also, this is just like a really bare bones overview of karma. This is a really big topic. And all of these, karmic actions also has an environmental result. So I'll just give you one example because I thought this was so interesting. So, for example, for killing, if you've killed in the past, then when you'll have difficulty finding nutritious, food and drink and medicine. You may find them, but the point is that they're weak, they're ineffective, they cannot keep you alive, right? And so you'll die a prematurely early death. All right. So karma also has certain characteristics. These are like general characteristics. And I'm going to go through these really quickly, just with the hope of, sparking your curiosity, hoping that you'll read about this on your own. And it's important to understand these because, again, they're principles or that inspire us to engage in virtue, right? So the first is that karma is definite. So this relationship between karmic cause and effect is definite. So non-virtue results in suffering, never happiness. So no matter how good it feels to curse at customer service, in the long run, you'll suffer the karmic consequences of harsh speech, right? On the other hand, virtue results in happiness, like giving credit where credit is due, right? Giving somebody else the credit for a successful idea or project, even though it was yours. The second one is that karma increases over time unless it's purified. And even small actions, because that karma increases, can bring immense results and should not be overlooked. So, for example, if you're generous, even if it just means, giving a tip to somebody at a restaurant, a big tip to somebody, to the waiter, right? That has big positive karmic consequences. The third is that you don't experience the results of actions that you didn't do. So karma ripens on a personal level. At the same time, if you order somebody else to go and rob a bank for you, right? And think of gangs and all that. Then you still accumulate, a portion of that negative karma of stealing. In terms of virtuous actions, then that also applies. So directly and indirectly, you can accumulate positive karma. And you can do that by, rejoicing in somebody else's good deeds. You can support somebody who's in retreat, or you can donate to help others who are risking their lives, to care for people in war zones, right? So many people who are, truly heroes and heroines who are out there risking their lives every day. And then lastly, karmic actions that are done, their results do not disappear. So even though we can't see the karmic results, it's not like they're not there, okay? And they persist. They persist over this continuity of moments and moments and moments of consciousness. And so imprints, karmic imprints can ripen in the future when, so they're spoken of as like karmic seeds, right? So these seeds are there, and they ripen when necessary conditions arise, just like a seed. When the temperature and weather and soil conditions are right, the seed will sprout. Okay. Any questions about that before I tell a good story?
In regards to eating meat, so if you're not necessarily like, you buy like a thing of hamburger meat at the store, you're not necessarily like asking someone to do that for you, but through money, it's like indirectly asking you to continue the chain of supply and demand. So do you get like not like you get just like a small portion of karma, or is that like half of karma?
It's smaller than if you actually went out and killed the dog. Oh, sorry, killed the cow. Well, some people do eat dogs, so sorry, that was on my mind. But yeah, you do accumulate a certain amount in a good karma.
And what if it was in regards to someone offering it to you? Like if you went to, right, like someone's house, right?
Sure.
And I know that's like a, you know, thing, nuns do when they go around, hey, like, you take the food that you're offered. Is that also taking on negative karma even if it's offered to you? And you would then be hurting the person by denying?
Yeah, so that's the Buddha actually never specifically said, you know, you can't eat meat. And it was in that tradition, in that context of monks that were like in the Theravada tradition, who were going from home to home, doing the alms rounds, right? And so if somebody gave you the frog on top of the bowl of rice, you know, you couldn't say, oh no, sorry, I'm vegetarian. I don't do frogs, right? You ate the frog.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think just as a, you know, you just try to, that's a whole new big topic, big topic, vegetarianism, but, you know, do the best you can. Yeah. Okay, good question. I'm happy to talk about that after class. So there's a whole genre of Buddhist literature known as like the life stories of the Buddha that explain the workings of karma. And generations of Tibetan children, you know, have grown up on these bedtime, like they're kind of like bedtime stories, right? And since we all come to the Dharma through different paths, I thought I'd just give a short summary of just one of these stories. You know, again, hoping that you might be inspired to read more of them in the future. And they really help bring karma, you know, to life, right? It's juicy. It's not like what I've just been kind of like rattling off these principles, right? So the source for this is a text called The 100 Deeds, which was translated by a wonderful organization known as 84,000. 84,000, I'm sure some of you have heard of it. Its mission is to translate all of the Buddha's words into modern languages and to provide open and free access to this collection. As I mentioned, Kaya Fisher is teaching Tibetan Saturday mornings at DNKL, and he worked on the translation of the 100 Deeds. He's an excellent teacher, and he shared this text with me. So I picked the one called The Dog, because if you guys know me, I like dogs, right? I had to read one about the dog. So I'm going to try to just summarize this. So a wealthy couple had a son, and when he was old enough, they got him a little female puppy to play with. And whenever the puppy encountered a philosophical extremist, I guess there were a lot of them those days, she would run and bite them. But when she saw Buddhist monks going by, she would run up and lick their feet and circumambulate them clockwise. You know, that's a respectful action, right? And she's wagging her tail. And so the great venerable Shariputra, he realized then that the time was right for this householder to learn about the Dharma. So he went to visit him. And the puppy ran up and, licked his feet, circumambulated him 3 times, and wagging her tail like crazy. And the householder looked at this wonderful, adorable puppy, and he said, "Wow," quote, "my, this one has fallen so low as to possess the body of a dog. But if even she thinks to pay this monk such great esteem, then surely this monk is a great being." Like even the dog knew. Damn. Okay, so I should invite this monk and offer him food. The householder invited Venerable Shariputra into his home and respectfully offered him a meal, like that was the custom, right? And after the meal, Venerable Shariputra taught the householder the Dharma. And so the householder's mind just, turned toward the Dharma, and he became very generous in his community. And so Shariputra came and taught him the Dharma on many occasions. And each time, the householder and the puppy listened to the teachings together with great interest. Okay, so one day, the dog fell ill. And Shariputra said to the dog, "And so it is, child. All conditioned things are impermanent. All conditioned things are suffering. All phenomena are selfless. Nirvana is peace. Let your mind be filled with joy at the thought of me, and you may even be released from rebirth in the animal realm." And with that, he left. So not long after he had gone, the dog did die, but she was filled with joy of the thought of Shariputra. And after she died, she took rebirth in the same house in the womb of the householder's wife. Upon learning that the dog had died, Shariputra advised the householder to keep the dog's bones hidden. And 9 months later, the wife gave birth to a beautiful girl. And seeing that the little girl was distracted and antsy, and she couldn't listen to the Dharma, Shariputra showed her the dog's bones and blessed her to remember her past lives. So she looked at the bones, she's like, "Oh, oh." So then, filled with faith, she left her parents, took ordination, and having freed herself from all of these afflictive emotions, right, she became an arhat. So she remembered Shariputra's previous kindness, and she approached him again and again, prostrating herself at his feet and saying, "Thanks to noble Shariputra, I was freed from the realms of animal birth and achieved great virtues. It's all due to the difficult task that this noble one has done for me." So some monks overheard her and saw her prostrating, right? And they asked Shariputra why she said this. And Shariputra then explained that she was, the householder's puppy. And then the monks asked him, quote, "Lord, what was the action this nun performed that ripened into her birth as a dog? What did she do after she died and took rebirth as a human being that she pleased and did not displease the Blessed One, went forth in the Blessed One's doctrine, cast away all afflictive motions, and manifested arhatship?" And the Blessed One replied, "Monks, it was partly her past actions, and it's partly her present actions as well." Lord, what action did she take in the past? So, so in a previous birth, she was a nun who served a group of other nuns. She did the cooking and cleaning, and etc. And one day she asked some of the nuns who were of higher attainments, higher realizations than her, to help her do something. But the nuns said, "Oh, sorry, we're too busy. We can't help you right now." But when she heard this, she bristled with fury, and seething, the nun shouted at them. The nun shouted at this group. She said, "You're like dogs. All I do is look after you and fill your stomachs. Can you not help me for even a moment?" So even though she was filled with deep regret and spent the rest of her life engaged in pure conduct, she was born as a dog. not just for one lifetime, but for 500 lifetimes. But at the time of her death, she prayed, "Whenever I'm born, may it be into a family of great means, prosperity, and wealth. May I please and not displease Uttara, the young Brahmin prophesied by the totally and completely awakened Buddha Kassapa to be the next blessed Buddha. Going forth in his doctrine alone, may I cast away all afflictive emotions and manifest our hardship." And so that action ripened such that she was born into a family of great means, prosperity, and wealth. And she pleased Shariputra, who was equal to Buddha Kassapa. And so those were the actions of the past life. Okay. So Shariputra said to the monks, "Well, you may ask, what are her present actions?" So born as a dog, she was filled with joy at the thought of Shariputra. And because of this, she took birth among humans. Those are her present actions. So think of this life story when you're, maybe right now, you're snuggling, with your dog or your cat or your pet, watching a Dharma talk on Zoom, right? You never know where that can go. That might lead to. We used to have, I remember there was a couple that came here to, it was a long retreat, like a 5-day retreat with Gyimie Khyentse Rinpoche several years ago, way before COVID. And they brought this adorable little, like a Chihuahua type dog. I think it was called Yogi. And that dog sat in, their laps for the entire 5 days. He was so good. He was adorable. Okay. So what are the benefits of having faith in karma? Just a quick summary, 2 points. So I think you've probably figured this out, but it's worth repeating. The first is, when you do face hardships in life, you'll understand that these are the results of negative actions that you committed previously. You will not increase your anger, you will not increase your negative karma by getting angry, right, and blaming others for your own problems, right? Instead, you will be happy that the negative karma has ripened, so you will not have to suffer it again. Okay? So it's over, right? You collected the this negative karma, it ripened, you've exhausted it by going through the suffering that it created. Then it's done. You got lots of other negative karma, but that one's over with, so that's good. Secondly, in order to prevent your future suffering, what can you do? Well, then it's obvious, right? You be careful not to repeatedly or to continue to hurt others. Right? You're going to watch your mind, watch your speech, watch your actions of the body. Okay. So just as a little summary here, we're talking about how virtuous actions result in happiness and non-virtuous actions result in suffering. So I want to just touch on the virtuous actions to kind of, because that's important. So our motivation, our intention to either help or harm others drives our physical and verbal actions. If our minds are permeated with love, compassion, with a deep sense of gratitude, and appreciation for all those who support us, and even those who don't support us, right? Then, if we can do that, then practicing patience, opening our hearts to others, is easy, and we'll refrain from retaliating when others do harm us. Okay. So our lives are enriched by this teaching on karma. So just quickly again, the 10 virtuous actions to be adopted are basically the opposite of the non-virtuous actions. Okay. So a body, saving and protecting the lives of others, generously giving what we can to help others, cultivating truth and honesty in our relationships by respecting others. Of speech, it's always speaking the truth. And instead of dividing people, you work to unite people and bring them together. Talk about other people's good qualities instead of bad mouthing them. You always speak about meaningful things, right? You use soft, gentle, and loving words. And then of mind, having a loving attitude, rejoicing in others' happiness, generating a compassionate attitude toward all living beings, and cultivating wisdom and a realistic, accurate attitude to life. Okay, so I was going to talk about how karmic imprints are carried from life to life, but I am going to skip that for right now because I'm out of time. So it's important to reiterate that karma it's like a natural law, so to speak, that controls us whether we believe in it or not, right? These things will happen. But that being said, we definitely have free will, right? Because we're making a choice as to how we think and act. We're responsible for our actions, and we could choose whether or not we want to engage in virtuous or non-virtuous actions. So we create the causes that give rise to karmic results. So last week we had this wonderful example of road rage. And just to think of this, again, a little bit differently. If our response to being cut off by somebody who swerved in front of us to make it to the exit on time, again, if we get angry, if we allow ourselves to get angry, and we feel that our anger is justified because our life was endangered, if we yell at the guy, "Hey, go to hell," right? What kind of future suffering is that going to result in? So hopefully by reading that story of the dog, okay. So the root cause of our anger then is the self-grasping ignorance and the negative emotions that it provokes. And so we can choose, do we allow this powerful force to dictate our response? Or can we, preserve our peace of mind by accepting that what happened was a result of our own previous karma, and then be glad that we don't have to experience it again. Okay, so we have 15 minutes. So one of the questions that comes up, and this is, for you as a group, right? A question that often comes up is, why do why do bad things happen to good people? So based on this understanding of karma, how would you respond to that question? Why do bad things happen to good people? Louisa?
Is this okay? So this is an actual question, not a okay.
It's a question
Um,
from class. Yes.
So could this be related to the idea that we have past imprints from karmic actions, and they're just happen to be ripening, and that person might be a very good person, but that their karma is ripening at that time?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That's a good, succinct response, and it's accurate. Thank you. Anybody else? Wes?
One thing I would love to comment is like, I notice like a lot of times when people sort of hear this idea about like how possibly like when bad things happen to good people, and typically it's a result of something that they may have did in the past or in the past life, something like that. A a lot of people I feel like tend to take this as sort of like victim blame and like whatnot. But one thing I like to point out is that like, this whole idea about how the affliction that we have ultimately rooted in ignorance, it's hard to actually blame the person for committing that action in the past,
Right,
An
right.
example I like to use is like, it's like a blind man walking into a wall, like. He's
That's
not
really
at
good.
fault for doing that, he's blind, he can't help. But at the same time, he walked into a wall. Someone else did that.
Right,
So
right,
it's
that's
like,
perfect.
I feel like that's one thing that people need to keep in mind is like, not to sort of fault people for their action, not to like say like, oh, you deserve this. to
Right,
happen to you.
right, thank you,
Say,
yes.
It's unfortunate that, that you had that habit in the past that caused you to do this and, understand that there was reasons for that at that time as well. And
Right.
just, hope that there's a good path forward.
Right, right, yes, yes, that's really important too. Yeah, so when we talk about karma, it definitely, it's not used to as a way of blaming people, just for you guys online, in case you couldn't hear Wes's excellent points. It's definitely not useful or intended to blame people per se, to make them feel guilty about actions that they did in the past. But again, rather it's a way of having more compassion for everyone, because we relate that to the idea of how we're under the control of these negative emotions, of ignorance. We went through the whole list, right? And so thinking that due to being under the power or the strong influence of ignorance and the like, then living beings, are pulled left and right, up and down, by these strong tendencies. So when they commit a non-virtue, then it's in response to these forces.
Oh, good question. I remember Chanel once said that karma ripens in 5 to 7 years. But sometimes I feel like as if my karma ripens faster.
5 to 7 years?
Yeah,
That I've never heard.
he said that once in a law we were teaching, like
5 to
a
7.
while ago, 5 years ago.
Maybe lifetimes? No, karma can ripen, like right now, in this lifetime, it can ripen, or in a future lifetime. Like
Yeah,
lifetimes.
I've seen that like if you commit like an action this lifetime, you're not gonna see it happen right away.
You might. Like, look, if you go out and kill somebody, dude, you're gonna end up in jail, right? That's
Okay.
lifetime. Hopefully.
I might have been screwed.
Yeah, maybe it was a translation thing too.
Yeah,
But we can ask him.
Yeah.
When he gets out of retreat, we'll ask him. Follow up with that. Good. Anything else on that question? Otherwise, we're going to do this meditation. Why bad things happen to good people. Right? Okay. And I had these the questions from last class, and nobody took me up on my offer. I don't remember what the questions were, but I got 2 more questions for this week. So if you want to pull some thoughts together, sometimes it's nice just getting some feedback, or if you just want somebody to if you just feel like brainstorming and you want somebody to look at what you've come up with, I'm volunteering. I'd be very happy to do that. And so the questions for this week are, because nobody took me up last week, I feel so sad. Why do bad things happen to good people? The second one, how do we live an ethical life? Ethical. I think I'm having problems talking. How do we live an ethical life? And the last one is, then how do we create the causes and conditions for future happiness? Okay? So write something. There's no exam.
Excuse me. Your email is losang@gmail.com.
No, that's the problem. It's Tendrol, Tendrol 108 @gmail.com. tendrol108@gmail.com. And I'll type it into the chat. Or if you have, like any questions or you want to write about something else, those are just suggestions. I'd be happy to.
I believe your email is also is it in the description or maybe in the email you sent before the class too?
I don't think it's on the website.
Yeah, I don't think we put it on websites, but yeah, you're right. I think it's, yeah. But it's here now.
Okay. There, it's in the chat. Tendrol108.
Tendrol108@gmail.com.
Yep, you got it.
Can we access recordings of these sessions?
Yes. Did I?
They're on the website. If you go directly to the website and where it says classes or the one that says, if you do go to the drop-down menu, it says previous classes and it links to all of the recordings that are posted on YouTube.
Oh, I don't know.
It's a new feature of the website. Yeah.
Nice.
there.
Gloria's the website webmaster. She did a beautiful job redoing the website. It's awesome. Okay, just a short meditation. Meditation on karma. This is from Lama Yeshe, from the publication called Lam Rim Year. There's a short meditation for every day of the year. This is day 174. The laws of karma function whether we believe in them or not. That's a quote from Lama Yeshe that summarizes the topic. So I'll read this and then there are a few meditation points underneath. Some people argue that karma is experienced only by those who believe in it. In other words, those who don't believe in karma don't experience its effects. This is completely incorrect. If we act in a certain way, we're sure to experience the appropriate result. Just as surely as taking poison will make us sick, even though we think it's medicine. Once we've created the karma to experience a certain result, that outcome is inevitable. Cows, pigs, and scorpions have no idea about karma, no beliefs one way or the other, but they must still live out their karma. All their actions are motivated by either greed, ignorance, or hatred, and each definitely brings its own result. Therefore, we must never think that karmic actions and reactions are only a Buddhist thing, a Lama thing. Karma is a natural law governing all physical and non-physical phenomena in the universe. It's extremely important for us to understand this. Thus, we are all under the control of the true law of karma, whether we believe in it or not. So don't think that followers of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are beyond the reach of karma and do not need to be mindful of it. It's not true. For example, Jews and Arabs have accumulated karma with each other, and now there are all sorts of problems in the Middle East. Even though butchers may not believe that killing animals will have any negative repercussions, whether they believe in it or not, giving such suffering to other beings will definitely come back upon them. So this is a quote from a teaching by Lama Yeshe. It's the okay, so the first meditation point then is to familiarize ourselves with this idea that if we act in a certain way, we're sure to experience the appropriate result. Then we'll spend another minute or two, just think of how karma, how we can think of our own lives, what's going on in our own lives now, through this lens or this perspective of karma. Does something that's going on in your life, maybe make more sense when it's approached through this karmic perspective. Can the causes of suffering be eliminated forever? I hope this session has helped you begin to see how the answer to this question is yes. So next week, we'll continue to delve into the nature of suffering by looking at the assertion that all composite things are impermanent, and developing an accurate understanding of impermanence helps loosen our attachment, and in that way opens the starting point, opens the door to freedom, cracks the door open. Okay, so we dedicate the merit from this session, from all the good intentions, all the positive energy that we devoted to learning about the Buddha's teachings, to all the sentient beings around the world that are mired in suffering, the unimaginable suffering of living beings around the world. And while we can't put an end to famine and poverty and sickness, while we can't put an end to such suffering on a global scale, we can certainly start out just by generating the intention to do so and making that our life's purpose, thinking that that's the only reason for us to be here. We can devote all of our energy, all of our intelligence, all of, whatever resources we have, the generosity of spirit and mind. We do as much as we can right now to change our own minds so that we're not contributing to the suffering of others, that we're not harming others. And that in the future, we will eventually, definitely be able to help others in a bigger way. So we've got to start now. Got to start now. There's so much we can do. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you,
Annie. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.